Hi, I'm Parthenope, and you're listening in time.
First time and
Put on
last
your
time I'm going to
YouTuber
look at
face.
camera.
Come on, YouTuber face.
My YouTuber face, yeah,
One of those.
exactly that. So today, myself and Joe are in the presence of Sinead as guest host.
Hi.
She does a lot of the writing. I'm sure you'll appreciate her words, and they're pretty sick anyways. So, and then we've got lovely Parthenope on as our guest today. So, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm well. You guys seem well.
Yeah, a bit knackered, but
Aren't we all?
yeah. I think Sinead's running on the least amount of sleep. If we're like, it's like 3 or 4 hours. But So like, we'll just start off here then. So like, just with music and everything like that. How would you get into it? Just before everything started rolling, we were talking about all the different places you sort of been to as well.
Yeah. Okay, where did I start? Well, I originally got my sister's hand-me-down violin. I actually wanted to play trumpet, but I got, that's the instrument that I got given when I was 8. And yeah, I mean, I pursued violin. That was my first study until I was about 14, and that was my life. I was really serious about classical violin, playing in orchestras and chamber groups.
Tricky instrument as well. Takes quite a long time.
Yeah, well, they do say you have to start it young. I mean, people told me that 8 was a bit late, even, it's very prestigious, world, the classical strings. But yeah, I mean, I was sort of training when I was about 15 to pursue, being a concert violinist. I was planning to go to conservatoire, and my sister is an upright bass player, and I used to go to some of her gigs, and I went to one of her jazz gigs, and I saw a sax player, and I was like, oh shit, it's quite cool, you know.
I think it's the only instrument that makes us all question our instruments, isn't it?
And yeah, my mum worked at a music centre at the time, and they got given a whole bunch of instruments to sell.
That's it.
And the only one that didn't sell, that was just sat in the house, was an alto saxophone. And it was like winking at me in the corner, like every time I walked past it, like I was there doing my scales every day on violin, and it was just like sat there, and I begged for like 6 months to be able to play it, and then eventually she was like, you can have it as a side hustle, but and then it was kind of just treated as my fun one. I mean, surely the violin should have been the fun one. But yeah, I just joined like a school jazz band, and from then I decided to pursue saxophone and jazz instead of the classical violin side.
Yeah, in your face classical, yeah. No,
yeah.
Any regrets with that?
Oh, no, not at all. It was actually when I auditioned for Cheatham's that I had to pick the road, really, because I auditioned for classical violin and jazz sax, and I got a number both. So then I had to
that's incredible.
choose the path I wanted to go down, really.
Yeah, I mean, go on.
How did you make that decision if you knew you were great at both and like you'd been playing both for quite a while? What drew you to saxophone?
Well, I mean, I've always loved like the improvised side of music. So even with violin, I was in folk groups because I really enjoyed that, nothing was on the page, and that people were like interacting with each other musically, and there was an improvisatory element as well. And obviously when I found jazz and I started discovering jazz, it was just so exciting for me to see that improvised element.
Which a lot of classical musicians don't.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just a new avenue for me to explore, honestly, and I was really excited about it. I was listening to all these new albums and new artists that I just thought was so cool. And it was when I was 16 and making that choice that all of this was sort of coming to my attention, and I was just like, this is what I enjoy. So
yeah, talk us through a couple of those early albums, because it's obviously a very different instrument, going from violin to sax. So what kind of things were you listening to when playing violin?
Well,
and then compared to when you were playing sax.
Okay, I mean, I only listened to classical music until I was about 13 or 14.
Was that what you grew? So you grew up with classical music in the house then? I'd imagine.
Well, I just put it on.
Yeah, really.
It was my doing. I didn't know any pop artists. I didn't know like Beatles, Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
Like I literally just knew about classical music. And as I said, like sax broadened my horizons, like opened my eyes to all these different influences. But yeah, in terms of albums that I was listening to at the start, I got given a Michael Brecker album called Pilgrimage, which was the album that he wrote before he passed away and recorded like a few months before. And I always used to put it on in the car. So whenever we were in the car, you know, my mum was like putting on BBC Two, and I was like, no, we're gonna listen to Pilgrimage again. And I still love that album, like, but it was quite an intense one to, you know, start with.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people who get into jazz start with the really intense albums. Like I know people who go straight to like the Giant Steps album and straight to bebop stuff that's quite like, you know, it's just in your face a bit. But you know, that's just how it went. I feel like a lot of the time I tell people to get into jazz by listening to Chet Baker or
Chet Baker Sings is kind of like probably the most popular album.
Yeah.
I want to just kind of say that without even Googling it, but it feels like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I sort of started on the extreme end and then worked my way backwards in a sense.
I think that's common with a lot of musicians though, like, you know, regardless of the genre, because everyone's addicted to like playing the most challenging things.
I know, yeah, it's funny.
Technique is so much of a... Everyone wants the best technique, and regardless of learning harmony and learning chords, it's so cool to have, you know, to be able to play the most challenging things. So, you know, when did it start like becoming apparent that you needed to go back to the more basic stuff, you know, learn the, you know, the basic ideas of jazz harmony, the things that we all have to do at the start of music school?
So when I first enrolled at Cheatham's, that was for sixth format, I went there. They really like it's funny because the jazz course is like 70% classical because they just really rip you on your technique. Yeah. So I sort of was in this state where there was so many new things to explore. Like I said, I was really excited about it all, and like it was sort of all like bubbling up inside me. And then I got there, and they were like, "No, you need to practice scales for 3 hours a day." But that was what I needed because that slowed me like down with the whole, you know, frantic like, what do I listen to now thing. But I think, once I'd been told to go back to basics, and then, you know, teachers would recommend me albums that, you know, were from like Chet Baker and people like Stan Getz, where it's like more sort of, you know, it's a different vibe to the heavy hard bop stuff and the post bop stuff and, you know. But I think just at that school, being in the environment where I was constantly getting recommended music from students and from teachers and stuff.
It's good though, because like with like Stan Getz and Chet Baker even, I mean even like Miles Davis, like you kind of realise the width of jazz. It's not just fast bebop playing stuff, like there's growth and evolution like within it as well. So you can kind of realise, oh actually maybe bebop isn't your thing. I mean, won't it be? But you know, it's like if bebop isn't your thing, there's still other parts of like
100%.
Jazz vocabulary and stuff like that you can still learn. And
I
listen
think
to.
people don't realize like how much jazz is everywhere, because like people will think of jazz as being like, you know, either 1930s swing band or
elevator
like,
music.
Elevator music, or you know, people like Charlie Parker who you know, play all the bebop stuff, and there are actually so many different types of jazz influenced music. Like music right now, I'll show people and be like, I would class this as jazz, and they're like, what? No way. Like it's funny, such a broad,
it's even in pop
genre
these days as well. It's starting to come back, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. I work with like a few pop artists who want like jazzy, you know, flute, sax solos in their music. Just adds a little bit of spice that makes their music a bit more original, I think.
It feels like quite a revival at the minute. You've got a lot of artists like Jacob Collier and stuff kind of drawing jazz influences.
So that you went from Leeds to Manchester. And now you're in London. So like it's like the Holy Trinity. It's not... I mean, Leeds is pretty good for music. The like Leeds college. Sorry, which one was the one you go to, Joe?
Leeds Conservatoire.
Yeah, this is actually not Joe on camera, but there's another Joe that is just like, it's like a what they call ventriloquist acts. Yeah. It's one of those ones. He's talking from over there. You should move your lips at the same time. But yeah. So was there no choice to go back to, or was it never an option?
To go back to Leeds?
To go back to Leeds and go to that college?
No, I knew that I wanted to end up in London. I think that moving to Manchester sort of gave me like a bit of a progression into a more intense like musical environment.
It is intense.
Yeah. But I was quite lucky to have that sort of stepping stone into London, because I think moving from Leeds to London can be a bit much for, for a musician. But yeah, I mean, I always set my sights here just because I know there's so much going on and all my favourite artists are working here, and it's just...
It is literally like, you got to be here to kind of experience it, don't you?
Yeah.
And Leeds is, 3-hour drive away, 4 hours?
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Bit of a trek still. Yeah.
How long have you been in London? Have you managed to get to many live shows because of lockdown? Were you here before? And
so I moved here in September, and I lived really in the I lived like in the Barbican area, so it was really central. So I did manage to catch a few little shows and things that were happening between lockdowns, but unfortunately I didn't manage to catch many. But with summer, I've managed to go to a lot of festivals and play with people.
Yeah, and playing, festivals and playing gigs again. And when you first got to London, I mean, for me, anyway, I don't know if it's the same, but it was just like this big new world that I didn't know anybody. It was so intimidating meeting people, especially playing. The first time I played live was at a jam session in Islington. Nice. And it was the most terrifying experience of my life. I played loads in Birmingham, but how was it for you, coming to this brand new place?
Good question. I mean, it was strange because the area I was living in was kind of a ghost town because it's quite businessy, and nobody was coming. It's just like a prayer every 5 seconds, and like it was quite like dystopian and strange.
Sounds very London.
Yeah, but it wasn't like that busy, bubbly side of London that I was sort of half expecting. It was just really quiet and kind of like strangely, eerily peaceful. And I think, like, when I first moved here, I just sort of got my head down with being at Guildhall and trying to meet the people in my year and establish who I wanted to play with, trying to, like, play with as many people as I could from Guildhall, really, people who have graduated this year, just to get the chance to play with them was great. Yeah, I mean, I guess I quite like being in a new environment. I just find it...
Yeah.
There's something like exhilarating about being somewhere new and having so much to explore, and especially with coronavirus, that was like slowed down a bit, which maybe was a good thing because it meant that I looked at the place that I was in more detail, and like being with just people from my uni, not being able to meet anyone outside from that was maybe a good thing as well, because I could really get to play with people and establish who I wanted to have in bands and things like that. And
how did you keep yourself kind of busy, like when you couldn't gig? What were you doing with your music in that like space? So
I mean, I think a lot of musicians experienced this weird kind of like, what do I do now? People approach that in different ways, for sure, but I think I just used the time to write a lot of music, because this year I've sort of spent trying to work out who I want to be as an artist, because like right now I feel like there's so many different avenues I could go down, like especially with my writing, because I have so many different influences with classical and folk music and jazz. Like I feel like I could write all the different types of music, but I still want to find my voice as an artist. So that's kind of what I used my lockdown time to do, is just to write like loads and work with producers and try and find people, who can join the dots with my ideas. And I think that was successful. Like I feel definitely more like I know who I want to be, where I want to go with music now than I did when I first moved to London. And I don't think I would have established that as easily if I was not in London. So I'm definitely glad that I'm here, for sure.
And when it comes to finding like that voice as an artist, because I noticed you sing as well, you've been posting, and you sound amazing. How you didn't mention earlier when you started singing, whether it came when you were young.
Yeah, I just always sort of sang. And...
So does that fit in with like the styles of music you're gearing yourself towards, like?
Yeah, so I'm in the process right now of putting together my first album. It's very exciting.
Is that an exclusive?
I think that's an exclusive.
That is an exclusive, guys. I've barely told anyone that.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, so that's exciting, and at the moment, it sort of has a range of raw vocal tracks with like you know, more traditional singer-songwriter vibe, but with some different influences. And then spans also just to instrumental arrangements. I mean, I'm sort of trying to use all of my resources musically, like use the violin, like in my videos you might have seen that I play like a guitar, and you know, use the flute and the sax as well, and it's been great really this year because I've worked with you know, I've played on lots of different people's tracks and seen how they work in the studio and stuff. Has been really useful. But yeah, I'm having talks with people about the album, so it's not really on the horizon soon.
Yeah,
you gotta speak it into existence though, still.
Yeah,
even though it's still happening anyways in the background, but like at least like it's not like, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of music that I'm sat on, I don't know if I'll ever release it. Like you kind of sound like you've committed to that idea.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So would it be like an album or an EP?
No, it's gonna be an album.
Oh, sick.
I think.
So it was weird because when we had Connor on last time, and a week from today, you know, the episode will come out anyways, but we were talking about something very similar where it was like, because he came to London and he wasn't too sure what he wanted to be, but he kind of figured it out pretty quick because he realized he wasn't going to come in and become like the best pianist in London or like the best guitarist in London, but he realized his strengths within the jazz scene was on the production side. And I'm sure you've worked, you know, much better than we do anyway, so you might have already had this conversation with him, but I'm guessing like that's a similar sort of trail of thought you kind of found yourself in as well. You've sort of met all these people at Guildhall and jam scenes at gigs and stuff like that, and you're like, actually, like, you know, there's a fine balance with all of this as well.
Yeah. It's funny because he just said that he found the production side more fun. And I think that's just such a good mindset to have, is just do what you find most fun. That's like how I decided to go down the jazz route, and I mean, it's totally worked for him, and I think I would encourage that mindset in myself, just to, you know, when making decisions about things like that. Just
of course.
Do what you enjoy.
I mean, as you mentioned there, you know, you're obviously going to use all of the resources you can for this album, but another one of the things that you have is like an incredible array of musicians that you play with all the time. So, you know, for something that you might rather pass on to somebody else, you can. How do you go about meeting all these people? Because like we've spoke about James earlier, you know, James Smith and Connor and Tom Ford and So where do all these? How do you have all these connections?
So I feel like the thing that sparked it all was I did a few sessions for Celeste. Last year.
That's incredible.
That's big.
But they were actually, I mean, we sort of spoke about where to do them, but we decided to do them up north in Leeds because I was still there. And from then, like, because basically my Instagram is like my portfolio.
Yeah, of course.
So since I posted about working with Celeste, I feel like it's given other artists confidence to like get in touch, to do a session with me, and for me to get in touch with people asking to make music, or because it's kind of like, if you have something like that, it's like, you know, they're serious, they know what they're doing, like, so from then just things sort of start to roll in organically, like, and especially when I moved to London, it was just as easy as dropping people a message sometimes and just asking.
Yeah, I think people forget that.
Yeah, no, I mean, musicians are generally really friendly. Like,
yeah, they're human beings.
We find that though, innit? Because people always ask us, you know, how do we get? And it's we just drop them a message.
Yeah, just say hi.
99% of the time, like yourself, it's like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I just like meeting people as well, and I feel like that's an attribute that a lot of musicians have. It's just they're very social, and I mean, I think having a following online has helped as well. Just because, like, for example, how I met Connor, it was because we wanted to make some content together, and from then we've just been really good friends. But yeah, I mean, it's good having that incentive, like, let's make a video or let's do something for our social media, because it gives you like a reason to meet, apart from like if you just want to work on something that they're writing, or but yeah, I've definitely found that that's been a super useful tool for me, just to meet people. And yeah, I guess that might answer your question.
Yeah, of course, that's cool. Fantastic answer, yeah.
Once you know like a couple of people, then you kind of know everyone.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier about the pockets of musicians in London, like just wriggle your way into one of them, and then you'll know everyone in there pretty soon.
I mean, so yeah, talking about a bit more about Instagram, obviously you said it's, you know, like your portfolio, and you've clearly done a really good job. You know, you've got quite a large following, and you know, how much of your time is spent focusing on social media? And like, you know, we spoke to James and Connor about this as well, about the pressures of social media and how it has a lot of downfalls and negatives. Do you find any of that?
So, I mean, firstly, in terms of like how I manage my time, I think over summer, like the past few weeks, I've been dedicating more time to like pushing out on a regular post schedule.
Yeah.
That's just because like I have more time right now. I'm not studying. I found that like if I just made a couple of videos, like dedicated a day to it or something, and then I wouldn't have to think about it for like a month because I could just post once a week the videos that I made. And then I know that Connor, you know, he works on a similar wave. Like when he was pushing out all of those, you know, the duplicate videos where he's like make a short beat, he used to do like 12 in a day and then just like not think about it, because if it becomes like a daily thing in your life, then I think you can become quite obsessed with it, and that's just really not healthy. Like I always try and avoid being really intense about like the numbers and the insights, and
it's a healthy way about it.
Because I mean, I think you can definitely fall into it being too much of a part of your life. Yeah. Because it is kind of all pretend. And yeah, I mean, obviously it really has had a lot of benefits for me. So I'm glad that I've dedicated the time to it. And also I'm glad that I've managed to do it in a way where, you know, it's not been detrimental to like my daily life. You know, I've still had a life outside of Instagram.
Yes. It sounds quite balanced, and like I noticed as well, your Instagram, you don't just do like finished covers all the time. Sometimes you like post your practicing, your scales, and like it's really cool that you like show that those kinds of things to like other musicians who obviously follow you because like they're inspired by you, and just showing them that kind of side of things. I suppose that helps you build the practice in with the social media as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there's loads of things that I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for having an incentive to post it on Instagram.
Yeah.
Just things like exploring like how I would record like a cover, for example, with the violin and the vocals, like just by myself. I don't think I would have got to a point with using the violin where, you know, I could actually you know, put it into that kind of format where I could just perform by myself if it wasn't for Instagram.
Yeah. It's kind of experimenting.
Yeah. It's really fun. Like if you just do it in a good way and like a safe way, and it's something that I would always encourage people to pursue, is getting a social media presence, especially if you're a musician. Like it's just a no-brainer, really.
And do you spend, I mean, I guess it's a lot of people kind of avoid doing it. You don't spend too much time thinking about numbers. It's just kind of a motivation thing to like want to post and want to just have a little community. Yeah,
and just being able to get feedback on stuff you're doing as well, and like, you know, put little polls out on your story asking your followers things. It's just a nice little community that you can gather together and you know, and share with other artists when you collaborate with them, and you know, give other artists exposure that might not have had it if they didn't have a platform.
That's like the coolest thing we've observed with, like, because obviously we've had Connor on, we've got like in this little kind of world of Instagram musicians, like you guys all working together, and it's like so good. It's like, oh, like I follow that Instagram and like people on it together. Like it's really good to see.
Yeah, it's a community for sure.
Yeah.
I guess with a lot of that as well, I'm just rambling on now because I completely lost my trail of thought again. But I'm going to do one other thing. So I'm going to get the two Joes to try and think of the same word or same thing and just like do the ventriloquist act.
Gonna count us down?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
Chocolate.
Oh,
we weren't far off.
What was it?
Chocolate and carrot.
Chocolate and carrot. Make a carrot cake.
The thing is, you're not going to hear
you can't
carrot.
make a carrot cake out of chocolate, but no, that's cool. I just had to break the ice a little bit, didn't I? I realised I was like, oh shit, I completely lost my train of thought again. I've been spacing out. I think it's asleep. But it's cool. I guess with a lot of what you're doing now, and like it's helped open a lot of doors in general, and then we're back into like gigging and everything like that. Actually, like how are you finding gigging again?
Well, the first gig that I did after like this weird COVID thing.
Yeah.
Was the jazz cafe with Connor.
Oh, well, yeah, cool.
And that was just like, it was just such an incredible event, like, because so many people came together who hadn't met each other before but knew who each other were. There was so many people there who I'd been meaning to meet for so long, and like it was just like a really warm, friendly, like musical environment. So that was the first thing, but the second thing was like just the energy of everyone, because we haven't performed in like over a year, so we were just all like really excited, really into it, and that's something that has, you know, continued throughout like the past couple of months. Is just the energy has been so high, and from the audience as well, like the audience has just loved to see it. So yeah, I mean, it was weird at first because I'm not gonna lie, I did feel a bit rusty being on stage. And especially just because so much has changed with me in the past year and a half, like musically, that I was just playing from a totally different place than I was before. But yeah, I mean, the only things I have to say are positive really about going back to gigging, because it's like what I do it for, you
kind
know.
of bound to be. You didn't get like any more nerves than you usually would, or like, no, you were like really wanting to get back out there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's rare that I feel really nervous before a gig. I just sort of feel excited.
Do you think that's because you've been were you performing when you were playing violin at a young age, or like?
Oh yeah, so I used to get terrible nerves with violin because with classical music everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be a certain way. I used to do
technical as well at the same time.
Yeah, I used to do competitions where all the kids would play the same piece, and it was whoever played it the most perfect.
Wow.
Won.
That's
and then when I started playing sax, it was like I didn't have that same pressure, and that was the pressure of that was what was making me feel nervous. So I never really got that with sax and jazz and that context.
I mean, how would that? I don't think that would really work. How could that work in jazz? How can you have 10 people improvise over the same piece? It's going to be like it's just complete.
It would just be off of transcriptions, though, wouldn't it? It would just be like, oh yeah, everyone transcribed the same piece and everyone just plays it the same way. It's like cool. Everyone has a slightly different touch to it. That's fair enough.
You mentioned how you changed musically over lockdown. Talk to us a bit about that. What do you mean?
So obviously I've managed to work with loads of new people who've all influenced me, and because I've been writing more music, I feel like your improvisation changes a lot if you do a lot of composition, and just listening to loads of new music, getting influenced by new artists, and then growing on Instagram has exposed me to like loads of new people as well. I think it's just getting like being exposed to more music has changed me musically, because of course it has, like
of course,
Also, I think we underestimate, like, it's a whole year. Like, I feel like in a normal year as musicians we change musically so much, and like obviously it's kind of accelerated because we had nothing else. Well, we were just mainly focusing on just practicing and writing all the time. But like that's quite a long. I mean, especially at this age. Like,
exactly.
A lot of musical development.
But it was difficult though because we've spoken about it a million times. I don't want to bring it up again, but it was so hard to practice during that time for me.
Sometimes, I just go through weeks of just like. Did you ever get any of that? Like, how did you ever struggle to motivate yourself? Was just the passion just completely always there for the whole thing?
I think because I was studying, like my tutors were constantly giving me stuff to do.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, definitely like some days it was hard to stick to a practice schedule or anything like that. But like I said, I spent the majority of the time writing anyway, so it was kind of, I just did as much as I had to do with saxophone for uni, and then sort of explored with writing instead of, because I did so much technique stuff for 2 years. I kind of have been able to push that aside a tiny bit, like obviously maintain it, but so I just, because like that was like my technical years, and now these are like my artist like artsy experimental. That's like what the period was for me, really.
Well, this is the thing with like the past year and a bit or whatever it was with like just the whole pandemic vibe. It's not a vibe. It's definitely not a vibe. It's a lot of people, a lot of stuff happened. The toilet paper crisis, everything going up in price. But I was talking to one of my mates about this the other day, like, and how, and you were saying it yourself, sort of, with how busy you've been over the summer. It's like you can't say no to a motive right now. Like you're just gonna, if someone tells you to come to a party or go out or something like that, you're just gonna be like, well. You're going to keep using the excuse for a while, like, I haven't been out for the last year, so I'm just going to go out again. But I guess that's what makes the crowds probably so much more energetic right now as well. I can't remember who we spoke to about it now. Someone played in Europe, and I think it was James. Yeah, we're talking to James. Yeah,
the crowds in Europe.
And the crowds in Europe. So have you had a chance to play like Europe or anything like that yet?
Yeah, so I did a lot of like orchestra tours and stuff when I was younger, and we went to Europe a lot. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the crowds were definitely different. Also, I gigged a bit in America, like right before the first lockdown. It was like January, February last year.
Which part of?
I was in Boston.
Yeah.
And that was like a jazz thing.
Oh, was this when you were working out if you were going to go to Berkeley and everything like that?
Kind of, yeah.
Name drop.
Every episode.
Every podcast Berkeley, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of, but the like audiences at jazz bars and like at jazz gigs were like so different to in the UK.
In
so
what way?
Different. Just, you know, they weren't afraid to like shout, like woo, like, do you know what I mean? Like they were just like generally a bit more rowdy and energetic and like encouraging.
Yeah.
Oh, they encourage. Okay. Yeah.
Not like.
I thought it sounded a bit. I thought they were like being cringe or something like that.
If anything, that would be more UK to be heckled, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like I don't really enjoy jam sessions like that are put on in bars and clubs and stuff in the UK for a number of reasons. But I think you know, if you go and play at one of them, you just sort of get like a polite little clap after, and everyone seems kind of.
It's a bit forced, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit forced. Everyone kind of, not everyone, obviously. I've met some lovely people at jam sessions, but I find a lot of the time people are, you know, quite reserved, kind of there to judge.
Yeah. Know exactly what you mean.
And in America, I just didn't get that vibe at all. I'm sure there's some places that you do get that vibe, but in general, for me, it was a lot more friendly.
Yeah.
People were like really, you know, people were like egging you on while you were soloing.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's just more fun, like.
I suppose it kind of comes with that whole culture. Like to me, jazz, like from the jazz, seems like it's always been like an American thing, and it's like you'd have that kind of like rowdy, like that. It's very different. Just the UK is just very somber, and like all of us are very like.
We spoke to Ariel Posen, and he said something similar. This was like 6 months ago.
Yeah,
he
my
said,
memory's shot with that episode.
Yeah, no. He said the same thing, that crowds were just like, not that they weren't lovely. They all came up to him after the show, but that, you know, they're just a lot quieter here, and everyone's a little more reserved, you know, in regards to shouting,
uptight people,
clapping after solos and things like that. Sometimes we just, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's nerves or something.
Well, I'm guilty of it in the audience myself, for sure. Like I'll love like whoever's performing, but I'm not gonna.
You have to hear somebody else clap before you clap, don't you?
Yeah.
Nah. The worst was when I actually I was at the Spotted Dog in Birmingham, and I was like, because they start the jams at like 12 o'clock, and I don't know, I'm a bit of a grumpy old guy. I can't stay up past 12, so I fell asleep during one of the solos.
Oh my God.
And then like I was like not enough like this, and then everyone started clapping. I just get up and I just started clapping. I was like, I don't know what happened. Good job on the solo, but yeah,
So have you got any plans to go back to the US and do more shows? And things like that?
I mean, Corona,
of course,
kind of,
it's
you know,
weird.
It's stopping a lot of things, a lot of talks. I mean, I was meant to play Monterey Jazz Festival last, was it last September? Or no, it was September before last September. The one before Corona existed.
2018 or 19 or something.
19, I think.
Yeah.
And that was with the same band that I was in Boston earlier on in the year. And, you know, I think we would have sort of done a few more gigs that year, and I would have been there quite a lot that year.
Yeah.
But Corona stopped that.
So was this when you met like Domi, and I don't know if you met JD at the same time or?
Yeah, I've never actually met them.
Okay.
I was meant to go because I talked to them on Instagram.
Ah, right.
I was meant to go to one of her shows that she did in, I think it was Brixton or something. She did it in the UK.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah. She got me tickets to that, but I couldn't go in the end. And maybe I would have met her then, but no. I was in Boston to rehearse with a group that was put together by Monterey Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
It was called like the Monterey Jazz Festival Women Youth Group or something. I don't know. We just called it Woman Band because it was.
They tried to not overthink it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was like a 6-piece sort of jazz group that was all girls under 18.
Yeah.
And it was like an incredible experience, and
cool,
it was an opportunity for me to get some roots in America and to, you know, network a bit in America.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to do that in the end, which, you know,
No, I think
it's just
you should be able to at some point, right? Like it's starting to ease up a bit.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping to go to New York at some point this year.
It's just occurred to me. So I've noticed on your stories sometimes you put things up in French. Well, like your stuff set in French, right? Yeah. So I'm assuming you speak it, or like you're from a French family, and Domi's also French. So is that something like you had a common ground from the beginning?
Well, I actually know French because, well, I chose to learn it, but a lot of my family speak French because a lot of my family live in Africa.
Okay.
Wow.
And I've actually never spoken to her in French, but yeah, I didn't actually make that connection. Really.
Yeah, it's just occurred to me now. I was like, oh, hang on a second.
Yeah, maybe that's something I
should.
You
ever sing in French, maybe on.
Oh
your,
that'd be pretty cool.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. Actually,
start rapping in French as well.
That's the thing at the moment.
It's pretty sick. Big. French rap is sick. Like the Algerian guys that are doing it, like I can't name any artists off the top of my head, but like when it's on, like you can move to it.
Really?
Yeah. I'll find some on the drive back.
Oh, great.
We'll start that.
God, look here. So talks about you've got a gig this week, right, or next week?
So I've got a couple next week. Yeah, I've actually got one tonight.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Is it far from here?
I don't think so. I need to look. But that's just like a low-key restaurant thing. But next week there's Lost Village Festival, and I might hop on Connor's set there. And then also we've got Tom Ford's gig in Birmingham on Saturday.
Mosley, yeah.
Yeah, so got a couple of things.
Yeah, I think I might be going to that one. I don't know what I'm doing that day, but...
Really? That'd be cool.
Yeah. Tom Sand anyways as well, so...
I'll have to catch you there.
Yeah, Tom taught us. I went to BIM for 6 months and then decided that was definitely not for me. So I moved here instead. But yeah, Tom Ford taught us. And still teaches, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll get him for third year, but it's cool.
Yeah, so
it's whatever.
How long have you been playing with Tom?
So he originally messaged me to play on one of his tracks that I think he's releasing an EP soon. I don't know if.
Yes.
No.
He said been on about that since 2019.
Exclusive.
Since we started at uni, he was like, "Oh yeah, my EP's coming out like next year."
Really?
So,
he has loads of music that he's sat on.
Yeah. It's really cool though, but like. Because I think I saw him back in like 2019 or start of 2020, and now like seeing him sort of play the same stuff now, it's like, oh, actually, like you can sort of see the benefits of kind of sitting on it and really letting the music mature and then going back to it and working on it.
Well, he got me to like record some stuff remotely over lockdown for that, and then like a few weeks ago he just hit me up saying that his sax player dropped out of his band last minute for Ronnie's, and it was in like 2 days, and he was like, can you did you do
the Ronnie's gig as well?
Yeah, so I played with him at Ronnie's.
You set him with just like 2 days. Like
I'd never played with like him or anyone in his band, but he was just like, oh, you can come and play the gig. And I was like,
what was that like?
Hey. A lot of pressure.
Well, I didn't know any of the tunes. Like I just went on stage and I didn't know any of the music they were about to play.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it was at like such a prestigious venue as well. It's like his debut Ronnie.
So they always just let you solo last. Like you should know it by now. Like 4 times
I
round.
took like the first solo of the night.
Oh shit!
I was like,
wow.
That was
yeah, it was exciting. It's really great.
That's quite a flex. What an impression to make. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess it went all right because I've got some more gigs with him. Yeah, so literally that was the first time I met him properly as well. Nice. So that was the first time I met Ruben, also, who I'd known for ages before but never met. Which is like such a weird thing that just happens all the time.
Yeah.
Like you feel like you actually really know someone just from speaking to them all the time and seeing their stuff.
Have you ever had that where like you're kind of in contact video calling and then like you see them in person, they just look kind of different how you thought they would be?
Taller than you thought.
It's weird though because like if you meet, have you ever had the case where it's been like, you know, the other way where it's like you meet somebody and they're not what they thought you were, and you know didn't really work out, you know, the session wasn't as good as you thought it might be?
Well, don't name them.
Definitely do not name. Just describe them really in detail.
I don't think that's ever happened to me actually.
No, that's cool.
Good.
I feel like you can catch people's vibes quite well, like through messaging.
Yeah.
That's a funny question. I'm sure that'll happen at some point. I'm sure it'll happen. There's some people that I've met that I didn't expect them to be how they were, but not in a negative way. Like,
no, it's just catches you off guard a bit sometimes.
Yeah.
People. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, you've all got a thing in common, which is like the music that you've met up to do. So
it's true.
It'd be probably rare that you wouldn't get on with any of them. Yeah.
Well, Joe, you've got a pretty interesting gig tomorrow. You want to tell us about that?
Okay, so tomorrow
This is the easiest money ever.
I didn't know which show you were talking to.
Yeah, I know about Joe's gigs as well.
I've got to drive 4 hours in a van to Yorkshire to mime keys for 2.5 hours.
Oh my God.
Literally miming.
Why? What's the gig?
So it's just for a function band, but they have a keys player usually, but they've dropped out at the last minute and they couldn't find a replacement. So
he's a guitarist.
Just I'm a guitar player, and my dad's in the band. So he thought, why not ask my guitarist son to come and pretend to play keys for a couple of hours.
Pretend to plug everything in, pretend to set everything up. They're just going to play to a backing track. So
have you ever had like a strange gig that stood out, or like is everything kind of just a like similar, like great vibe? Or?
A strange gig. Nobody's ever asked me that. God,
it's probably on the spot. There's probably quite a few over the years.
It turns out the plot twist is she was miming all along. She was doing what, like, oh Joe, you're just starting that. Oh, I've been doing that for time.
I've done a few like promotional video stuff where you have to mime, but I've never mimed like a live gig.
No.
Well, what about? I'm not talking about miming now, but like when you record, that's what I was trying to figure out, because you do some of these like violin clips where you're singing in your garden, I think, or on a pound of patch of grass somewhere. Yeah, with your cat. Yeah. Firstly, I don't know how you get your cat to sit in one spot. Secondly, like with that sort of stuff, is that like you've kind of recorded it into Logic, but for the video, it's kind of set up outside?
Yeah, so I do try and record like things live in the video, so it's not like ingenuine, you know.
Yeah.
So like with the ones where I'm sat in the garden, I'll like record the vocals outside, but then mime the violin exclusive.
Yeah.
But just because like it's not loud enough, like the microphone.
No, yeah, I thought that. Like I think presentation wise, it was like it made complete sense.
Yeah,
and, like the vocals and everything like that.
There was one that I posted the other day with the violin where I was actually playing the violin though.
Yeah.
But that was because I wasn't singing as well, so I could kind of
right.
you know.
Yeah.
But it's hard doing it and singing at the same time as well.
What about the cat part? How do you do that?
The cat. Well, I actually have 2 cats, and one of them is evil, but she's really cute, but she's evil, and like she would not do it ever. But like, and then I have the other one who's like the complete opposite, and I feel like she's just had the first one like just being so like aggressive that she's just like completely like chill about everything.
She does. Sorry, the second one is that
Lola. She's called.
Yeah. So anything Lola does is like. She looks like an angel compared to the first
exactly.
one.
No, but I always just put like catnip there and she just rolls around in it, you know.
That's sick, yeah. That's actually, catnip's probably the way forward.
But people comment like, because she's a completely black cat and it was like really sunny, they're like, why isn't she sat in the shade and stuff? I think she's just
I think they're just overthinking it as well.
We're best friends, like she just likes chilling with me. I don't know.
That's cool. I think we're running out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, we're not got long.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else? So you got some gigs coming up next week.
Yeah.
You got music coming out soon, hopefully.
I do. Fingers crossed.
And you're quite busy working with other people and like on other people's music. So what else is like in the pipeline?
So I mean, I'm just trying to get the album together, really write it. I just working on people's projects, like you say, doing sessions with loads of new people, just trying to expose myself to new artists all the time.
Yeah, of course.
I occasionally do my own gigs, I haven't actually got one booked up right now, but that's because I haven't got a set that I want to like show the world yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, I don't have much to push, except from like my
that's
social media.
That's quite a lot, to be fair.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Albums, gigs.
What's like the one? This sounds like such like a trivial question now, but
we're allowed one.
Yeah, what's like the one word you sort of describe your album as, like you want it to, or not, or one sentence, is like what you're trying to make it be? Sick. Wicked.
Sick.
Well, good, isn't it?
Jazz.
Jazz, yeah.
What do I want it to be?
Good. That's always hope.
Like,
I just want it to, I just want to like touch people with it. Like,
yeah, of course.
Music.
I care more about music. Christ.
Yeah.
I just want it to. I don't want it to just sit there and be a thing. I want people to actually engage with it and it to evoke feelings in people and I mean, at the moment, the sort of idea is that it will be based off of another album that's quite like influential to me and important to me. So I want it to be able to, you know, in terms of this other album, I want it to have like the same
staying a secret or
okay. Have like the same like sentimental like feel to it, and the same sort of because a lot of people connect with this other album. I want it to you know, carry through to mine, and but just for it to be seen like in a new light, you know, shine light on parts of the other album that perhaps like wouldn't always be as obvious, and to just, I just want people to listen to it and feel something rather than just, you know, it just exists. And
no, I think it's cool that you're putting like a lot of thought into it as well in that sense, because there's a lot of like, you know, like that whole culture right now, new music Friday, it's just about like pushing music out and out and out. Yeah. It's just like
playlists,
just getting on the playlist, and obviously that comes into it because it's all a business at the end of the day, but it's like you got to put the upfront thought into it. I guess on that note, we can sort of start.
Yeah, I guess to wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being our first guest. Well, second guest host after
Tom
Ford.
Got here first.
But yeah, guys, check out our previous episode with Connor, Albert, and James Smith, and check out all of your socials. Do you want to plug them?
Yeah, so my Instagram's Parthenope, Parthenope, .music. And then I'm also on TikTok as just Parthenope, and then I have a YouTube channel which is the same. It's just all of it is just my name. You know, Facebook as well.
It's not the most common name, so it should be
Perfect. That'll be in the description. Check out us on Spotify. Check us out on Spotify, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you for watching. Cheers, guys. See you later.
Brilliant.